Mourning the passing of Henry Kissinger, Chinese President Xi Jinping, in a letter to US President Joe Biden, called the former diplomat an old friend of China. Kissinger met face-to-face with President Xi just a few months ago in July in Beijing, his last of over 100 trips to China. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs paid this tribute.
Dr. Kissinger was an old and good friend of the Chinese people, a pioneer and builder of China-United States relations. He had long been concerned about and supported the development of China-United States relations, visiting China more than 100 times and making historic contributions to promote the normalization of China-United States relations. The Chinese people will remember Dr. Kissinger's sincere feelings and important contributions to China-United States relations.
Globally, Henry Kissinger will be remembered as one of the giants, if not the giant, of US foreign policy in the 20th century. He served first as US National Security Advisor, then as US Secretary of State under President Nixon and Nixon's successor, Gerald Ford. In China, Kissinger is best remembered as the architect of the US rapprochement with the People's Republic of China, and later of Washington's official recognition of the PRC as the sole legitimate representative of the Chinese people. His secret trip to meet Premier Zhou Enlai in July 1971 is the stuff of diplomatic legend. First flying to Pakistan and feigning illness, his second more public trip to the PRC in October set the stage for the week that changed the world. US President Nixon's historic visit to China and his meeting with Chairman Mao. It was a visit that ended a generation of mutual hostility. Full diplomatic relations would be established in 1979. Just a few years before his death, Kissinger talked to CGTN's Wang Guan and gave his view on US-China relations.
In your book on China, you coined the word co-evolution in the Pacific community. What exactly does that mean?
Well, what it means is we should not require China to act like we do. China should not expect us to act like China does in all respects. What we should expect from each other or try to achieve is that we each develop our societies in the way we think are most appropriate. But as we do this, we keep in mind that we move towards similar and sometimes identical goals. So we progress side by side, but not necessarily to the same music.
US rapprochement with China helped end the Vietnam War. Kissinger's role in the Paris Peace Accords in 1973 won him the Nobel Peace Prize. Kissinger, along with Richard Nixon, will also be remembered for the policy of détente with the Soviet Union, which paved the way for an easing of Cold War tensions and the beginning of arms control agreements. Kissinger's ascent to the apex of political power was improbable. A German Jew, his family fled Nazi Germany in 1938 for the US. He first studied accounting before joining the US Army during World War II. His fluency in Germany helped him become an intelligence officer in Europe. He would later state that his experience in the US Army made him feel like an American. Kissinger became an academic, a deep thinker on foreign affairs and history. He wrote over a dozen books with hundreds of articles too. He was a proponent of realpolitik, the realistic balancing of global powers and interests. This detached view of foreign policy led to criticism. His detractors point to his support for coups in Chile and Argentina and elsewhere, as well as his support for the bombing of Laos and Cambodia and northern Vietnam. But his realistic approach to diplomacy helped stop the 1973 Yom Kippur War between Israel and its Arab neighbours. His fast-moving diplomacy was labelled shuttle diplomacy and helped cement his reputation as the world's preeminent diplomat. In retirement, Kissinger was no less energetic. He founded Kissinger Associates, a group that advises a myriad of governments and corporations. He remained a key global interlocutor into his 90s, especially between Washington and Beijing. Kissinger survived most of his contemporaries. He was the oldest former Secretary of State and the last surviving member of Richard Nixon's cabinet. While world opinion will remain divided on Henry Kissinger even after his death, I think all can agree that his outsized influence will live on for centuries after his effect on the 20th century's historic events. And when it comes to US-China relations, well, we could do with a lot more old friends like Henry Kissinger. Nathan King, CGTN, Washington.